but it's really not their responsibility. Okay. and that's how they sound when they talk. That's what I read. And I'm saying this to Donna, and she's like, what the crap are you talking about? And that's how she sounds. This is not what the document says. And I'm like, it is. I'm reading it. Okay. So now, Donna, your part.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 398 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle on location, Louisville, Kentucky.
That's right. I'm up here a little early, just to make sure that all of the bourbon is okay.
You tested all of it out, make sure we don't get sick.
Yeah. So I just flew in, threw computers together, ready to record with David.
Yep. So because of that, if you follow the show, we kind of break a little bit of tradition whenever she's on location because we don't have our normal things in front of us. And so we like to get to it.
That's right. We do want to. Go ahead.
In this episode, though, we're going to talk about the new National Cyber Resilience Plan. And,
strategy?
This came out last week.
What's it called?
It's called the
National
Cybersecurity Strategy.
There we go. Okay. I was like,
yep.
We'll make up our own words, and then no one will know what we're talking about eventually. So.
Yep. And so we will talk a little bit about that and some things that we found that were interesting.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Confusing.
Yes. Let's just say that our policy of reading the actual document and not other things holds true yet again.
Yep. So, I started with the White House fact sheet from the White House.
Yeah.
Then I jumped over to the document, which is, came out this month. National Cybersecurity Strategy, which also says it came from the White House, but it definitely was not written by the same two people.
No, we know how that goes, don't we?
Yeah. And so that's what we're going to go through today. And we'll go through these documents, talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, all those other things. The good ideas, the maybe, how are you going to do this? We don't know. What sounds good? Anyway, that's what we want to do. So we do want to say thank you to those who would donate to help Donna travel. Because pay for her security entourage. All right. Anything else, Donna, before we get to it?
No.
All right.
Let's just knock it out.
Let's dive right in. Where you want to start? At the beginning?
Let's begin at the beginning.
Because you know me, I kind of like starting in the middle. And it's like,
and then I
do it
lost.
I do this like I eat my Oreo cookies. Start in the middle.
You have to say that. I say, it is. I had one of my cousin's two sons. I was sitting with them recently at a family thing, and there was this whole debate about your Oreos. To them, the Oreo has to stay together. And I'm like, why? You have so much more to do. If you say, he's like, one of them looked at me and said, "You're insane. Would you do that with a hamburger?" Yeah, I have. Because that pushed a great button. So,
supposedly now they got these like super, super thick stuffed ones.
Double stuffs.
I think it's more than that. I mean,
they might be quadruple stuffed.
I don't know. It's like diabetic between two pieces of chocolate or something. I don't know. Anyway.
We digress, which is not unusual. But I'm going to cover the intro here, and then we can go through from there wherever you want, because the intro really did, kind of make me go, things that make you go,
All right, let's do it.
Arsenio Hall do that. The internet has transformed our world. Yes, it has. True that. In a single generation, which again was pretty interesting. I hadn't really thought about it. Revolutionized the way we innovate, communicate, and share information on a global scale. Where am I? Are you with me?
Catalyzing
unprecedented advancements in human prosperity, equality, and connectivity. Upon this internet backbone, we have built a flourishing digital ecosystem combining systems and technology with our economies, our societies, and ourselves. Now, that alone, that's a pretty profound way to put it, where we just go, hey, remember when we got started, we couldn't do any of this, and now we can. And by the way, I don't know how to function as a business, as a member of society, or myself without my technology now that has to be connected to the internet.
Yeah, because just imagine, had we went through the 2020 work from home. Oh, wait a minute. You couldn't work from home if it wasn't for the internet.
I know. Everything changed.
Yeah. What would we have done if that had happened pre-internet?
I can't even comprehend.
I know.
It would. I don't know. And that's the whole point is, we often forget, it was in the 90s, it was all about, do you have a device and a phone line so that you can access the internet?
Oh, I used to love that sound.
You'll do. It's like I hear it in my head sometimes with the modems connecting and I actually knew what some of those sounds were talking about.
Yeah,
but
how to keep looking, going, how many more hours do we have this month?
So you had to have the phone line, you had to have the device. And now, no. It's like, what do you mean everything on you is not connected to the internet? You have a smart bag that you have to remove the battery from. You've got, the trackers and everything is connected. So it's a profound difference in a very brief amount of time that we often forget.
We're not even talking AI yet.
I know, right? But then they go on to say, and this is the whole reason that we need to have a national cybersecurity strategy. In doing so, the digital ecosystem has come to reflect the values of its architects and its users. Technologies have promoted democracy, free speech, innovation, and equality, but everything's got a big old but.
Mm-hmm.
They also have been misused to enable transnational repression and digital authoritarianism, steal data and intellectual property, distribute disinformation, disrupt critical infrastructure, proliferate. Don't we love proliferate? Online harassment, exploitation, and abuse, enable criminals, foster violent extremism, threaten peace and stability.
I just noticed that they have a lot more negative than they mention positive.
Right. But, people in technology are increasingly linked, further enabling the very best as well as the worst of humanity.
That will be true again.
Yeah. And so, that's it. I remember when I was a kid and there was a huge debate about whether or not we were going to be allowed to use a calculator instead of doing our math on paper.
Mm-hmm. That's why I had the wristwatch that had the calculator on it.
I know, right? I don't even bother with that. I just ask, how much is blah, 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 I'm not saying their name right now because she'll answer and then we'll all deal with it. But now, it's making some good points that often I don't take the time to think about, especially because, whatever new nerdy thing's there, I want to see it. I want to play with it. I haven't read the article yet, but I'm fascinated that apparently they're growing computers with mushrooms. I don't know yet, but it really sounds psychedelic. I'm going to have to check it out. I have the article up. I just haven't had time to read it, but they're like, I'm fascinated by the concept. We'll get back to you on that. But for the most part, it just goes through from there about malicious actors and yada, 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 so on and so forth. And then it finally gets into our approach, a path to resilience in cyberspace. So now let's talk about the fact sheet.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because what the fact sheet says really makes implications that are not actually in the plan. And like right away, we had conflict because he's saying this is what it says. And I'm like, I didn't see that. And we finally figured out.
But I'm reading
it. He's like, it's right here. I'm like, it's right there.
Yeah, I know. I was like, again, you're wrong.
You're wrong. And thankfully, it was one of those things where we both get to say we were right. I was reading what I said I was.
Yeah. So the part, we can skip the intros of the fact sheet if you prefer.
Yeah.
But
let's just get to the thing. This is why you don't use the fact sheet. Just make your own.
So, think about it though. Most people are probably going to jump to the fact sheet because, hey, it's the quick, down and dirty version. And you expect it to be accurate. And there'll probably be a lot of news articles based on the fact sheet alone. So, we get down right.
Make your point right now. We're not slacking.
Yeah. So, right at the very first paragraph, it says that this is how they're going to do these things. Number one, it says, we must rebalance the responsibility to defend cyberspace by shifting the burden for cybersecurity away from individuals, small business, and local governments and on to the organizations that are most capable and best positioned to reduce risks for all of us. Well, right away, I'm like, well, what? What are you talking about? Because we've spent our entire lifetime since I was a wee little lad saying that cybersecurity is something that we all have to be responsible for. It's in our boot camps. It's in everything we put out. Cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility. And then now all of a sudden now it's not. Now it's like, oh, we're going to shift this away from you and give it to somebody else. Like, that's not what I need to hear. I have enough problems with people trying to take responsibility for their own cybersecurity without having somebody else say, but it's really not their responsibility. Okay. and that's how they sound when they talk. That's what I read. And I'm saying this to Donna, and she's like, what the crap are you talking about? And that's how she sounds. This is not what the document says. And I'm like, it is. I'm reading it. Okay. So now, Donna, your part.
So wasn't prepared for that retelling, but it's good. So, I mean, what it does say, rebalance. At the point that it got, if you just ended with rebalance and ended the sentence, we're all good. But this whole away thing, which is, David's, point, which is not necessarily, I'm not saying it's a wrong point. I'm saying it didn't say that. So what it does say is the most capable and best positioned actors in cyberspace must be better stewards of the digital ecosystem. So the tools that we use and the people that are building those tools, instead of, it says today, end users bear too great a burden for mitigating the cyber risk. Individuals, small business, state and local government, and infrastructure operators have limited resources and competing priorities, yet these actors' choices can have a significant impact on our national cybersecurity. Fair enough. But that's not saying, and this was like, it was one of those where I went, that's way bigger than I really, it's a succinct way to put it. This sentence should have been there instead of away. A single person's momentary lapse in judgment, use of an outdated password, or errant click on a suspicious link should not have national security consequences.
Right.
That is a good statement.
Yeah, it should not be the click heard round the world.
There you go. We're gonna build on that, even though other people have tried, but they haven't taken it the proper way. Our collective cyber resilience cannot rely on the constant vigilance of our smallest organizations and individual citizens. Okay? That's what it's saying. So it says, instead, across both the public and private sector, we must ask more of the most capable and best positioned actors to make the ecosystem secure and resilient. That's what it said, is we need to ask more from those who are building it and controlling it and developing it, and less from that one individual who makes a mistake. It doesn't say never. They have a responsibility. So it's like,
I'm all for shared responsibility, but not shifting away from and on to.
Exactly. And it never says that. It talks about in a free and interconnected society, protecting data and assuring the reliability of the systems must be the responsibility of the owners and operators of the system. And if you hold your data and make our society function, we need the technology providers that build these services and systems to have a bigger role than they do today. And it says clearly, government's role is to protect their own systems, and to ensure private entities, particularly critical infrastructure, which, by the way, public health, healthcare and public health, HPH, is critical infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And to particularly critical infrastructure are protecting the systems to carry out the core governmental functions such as democracy, blah, 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 diplomacy. It goes on, nothing at all about a way. And then together, industry and government must drive effective and equitable collaboration to correct market failures, minimize the harms from cyber incidents to society's most vulnerable, and defend our shared ecosystem. That's it. Totally not what that one sentence says. So right away, the wheels fell off, and then we had to figure out, there was a part on a car that needed things. It's a long story, but go to page 4.
Yeah. Yeah. So, me and Donna argue with each other for half an hour about it.
Until we agree what we're going to talk about and how we're going to talk about it, we don't record for you.
Yeah.
And it's probably best that way.
It was a funny argument because it was one of those, but it doesn't say that. I'm like, but it does. But it does say, but it does.
It says this. No, it doesn't. It says this. And we were both right.
So that's what we mean when we say, obviously, 2 different people wrote these documents.
Yeah, and we know from our experience in the public-private partnership where 2 teams are writing about the same thing, but they don't come out with the same thing. Yeah.
Yep.
So they have the 5 pillars. Defend critical infrastructure. This is something we've known about. I mean, this has been a focus for a while. We've got the NIST CSF out of that because we need it. But they do make a point about there's so many incidents where, hospitals and school systems and local government and water systems and all these kind of things have been shut down. But what it's saying is the federal government can better support the defense of critical infrastructure by making its own systems more defensible and resilient. So they're not saying it's you that's a problem. It's saying we're all in this. We all have to do it. So as they go through that, they're like establish cybersecurity requirements for public safety and national security. And really, I mean, we already know critical infrastructure, there is a lot to worry about. And then in healthcare, it's, the term they use frequently is the stewards of the data. Healthcare has both, I need to be a responsible steward of the data, and I have to be able to provide care and resources to the individual at the same time, where a lot of people just have to worry about the data. Healthcare doesn't have that luxury. So I did find it interesting, David, that there was a thing in here that they are suggesting that there are some prioritizing and principles and all of this. And then down in there, they talk about regulations will define minimum expected cybersecurity practices or outcomes. But the administration encourages and will support further efforts by entities to exceed these requirements. Doesn't that sound like us talking about the HIPAA security rule forever?
Yeah. I mean, everything the government has ever put out on cybersecurity that I'm aware of, they all kind of say something similar to that, which is, this is our baseline. This is the minimum you should be doing.
Yes.
And which is great, because that's kind of what you're looking for. When people, you don't want to come out and go, this is the absolute maximum you should be doing, because then there's a lot of people going, well, okay, I can't do that, so I won't do anything. The unfortunate part is you see people going, I can't do the minimum, so I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah. That is unfortunate, but yes, that's where we are. And it's even something that we talk about in 405D is, how do you, so many people say, tell me what's the minimum amount I need to do? And this gets back to the burden being on the small business, the individual, and all those things. Because first of all, I don't even understand what most of the things, that most of those people rather don't understand what those minimums are that I'm going to tell them they need.
Yeah. The way I like to look at it and explain it to people is these are not the minimums. This is your baseline. Mm-hmm. So you can call it a minimum if you want to, but it's your baseline. So this is kind of where you need to be. And then everything above that is really what you should be shooting for, never going below your baseline.
That's a great way to put it. So I think, we're going to get there. We've been saying this is not a new concept. I think you and I have talked about it repeatedly, that we know that these requirements and regulations are coming down the pipe, either through the market, through the government, or both. We know it's happening. Mm-hmm. And that's why they make a point of saying, but instead of adding more stuff, what we want to do is harmonize and streamline the existing regulations with new ones that address where we are. And this is another thing. The HIPAA security rule came out in 2005. There has not been a change to it since then. The only thing that is remotely related to it is the high-tech amendment for recognized security practices. But it doesn't change the requirement.
No.
The fact that they also mention cross-border regulations and aligning what the United States is doing with the rest of our allies, if you will, because for many businesses, that's a huge problem. I got to do GDPR, I got to do this, I got to do that. And I think it limits it. That's the reason a lot of folks just never get there.
Yeah. Well, if you read a little bit into that, we know that we aren't doing as much as GDPR. And if we're going to align everything here, we can't expect them to roll back. That means we have to step up. So and this is another thing you and I have been talking about for a long time, is this stuff is going to come. This whole GDPR like stuff in the US is coming. It is absolutely coming. So for those people who already complain about it's too much, I can't do it, it's not going to get any easier. Sorry.
No. So it does make a point of saying, regulators need to, we've got to look at it in tax structures. There's other mechanisms to use. And that's one of the things we talked about in some of the proposals that we're looking at, even in healthcare. If you go back to Senator Warner's white paper and saying, how can we enable regulated entities to afford the security? Mm-hmm. So at least they're saying, again, there's this assumption of, you're just telling me I got to spend more money. No, we're saying we've got to do these things. Let's find a way to do them where everybody can participate. And by making, the ones that have the most money develop better stuff, and then it helps the ones with the least resources to mitigate what's still hanging. So,
well, maybe what they should do is the government should cut the MSPs a check directly to do cybersecurity for the entities because meaningful use didn't work very well.
Well, meaningful use had nothing to do with cybersecurity in the end. I can tell you that right now. All that money went, all the meaningful use money went to the EHR developers who didn't do security up front.
Well, I know there's some of the meaningful use money, I'm pretty sure it went to the local car dealers. They went to the vacation spots. Pretty sure.
Yes, they were supposed to. In theory, the idea was prove you're using these EHRs, and part of that was to say that you're securing it. But all it did was ask them, did you do your security risk analysis? And they all said, yes. Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, yeah, giving money to the end users and saying, here's some money to do security, I don't think that's not going to work most of the time.
No, it's not. But just what you got to watch out for is just like the EHRs, they didn't worry about security. They said, in fact, they said, that's your problem, end user, not ours. Yeah. So right there, they said it's your problem. Those people said, well, I ran a report that scanned everything. Those original ones, they would run vulnerability scans from the EHR and give you a report and say, check. Now you've done your risk analysis. They stopped doing that really early on, though. Really early on, all of a sudden. But it is good to see there's from a commitment level, replacing legacy systems with more secure technology, accelerating migration to cloud services where necessary, evaluate cybersecurity posture, and improve security and resilience of digital services that the government provides to American people. And they're committing to things like zero trust, which is huge. I think that in a lot of ways, what they're trying to say is those who have the capability to implement zero trust, fully implement zero trust, if we did some of that from a broad perspective, it may make a big difference. So, but who am I? All right. Anything else to say on that, or we're going to pillar 2?
Let's jump on to 2.
2. Disrupt and dismantle threat actors. Now, this thing, yes. We know that, it's exciting to see those recent successes. Clearly we were excited about it when we had a whole episode. Guess what they did to Hive? Then we found out they did this, and then they did this, and boy, was that cool. So from that perspective, we know they're already doing it, and it's really talking about coordinating response with law enforcement and our allies. But then there's a piece that's talking about, and it's true, and do I know the solution? No. But I am going to say that we know we can't defend from things. If something happens once over here and it's an attack that just happened in this one environment versus an attack that happened in 50 environments in the last week, those 50 are spreading and, they told 2 people and they told 2 people. So it's important to get that information right away. Mm-hmm. We also know that when somebody's hit with a cyber attack, they don't want to tell nobody. We're not talking about it. We can't be.
We got a problem with our computers.
I know. I hate that. Or just the server down. And then when the server's down for 2 weeks, it was a ransomware attack.
Yeah. And somebody says, what happened? And then they go, HIPAA.
But they make a specific point here. Counter cybercrime and defeat ransomware.
Wow.
And, they're making 2 big points, and it's something, we've alluded to many times. 2016 is when ransomware took off. It really became a problem in healthcare, and it started converting to attacking businesses and institutions instead of individuals, right? Mm-hmm. That's because, and people have said this to me repeatedly when they ask me to explain how that works, and I tell them, and they're like, so without Bitcoin, this would have never started. Well, it existed, but it wouldn't be the way it is today. Cryptocurrency enables, because it's the Wild West, right? Cryptocurrency out there, it's the Wild West, and there's great things about it being, there's no one watching your money and all those great things. But the bottom line is it's enabling criminals to do amazing things as well. And we need to rebalance it, David. They didn't say that,
yeah,
but
I think we should. Let's take it away.
That's not good. But, having some way to limit what they're able to do, like if we can stop them from getting in, we both know the likelihood of actually definitively ever doing that's going to take a long time. And no, we're never going to be perfect. We need to do better. But once they're in, as long as they have cryptocurrency that everyone can buy, they're out. So I think they use one of the words I like, illicit. It's illicit. Cryptocurrency exchanges. So they're really trying to find ways to deal with that and undermine, I like this. Ultimately, the most effective way to undermine the motivation of these criminal groups is to reduce the potential for profit. So they're like, I don't care how, we just want to reduce the potential for profit. So anybody got some ideas? Here's some ideas we're throwing at the table. Let's all figure out how we're going to do these. So I thought that was good. Pillar 3, shape market forces to drive security and resilience. A lot up in here. A lot up in here. So this is a section that before you develop any thoughts or opinions on it, you want to read the whole section. There's several things in here. And there is a thing where David read somewhere. What was it? I don't know that we want to confuse everybody with the details of it. But the bottom line is what you read about cyber coverage and what's in here, again, there's a complete disconnect.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep, you are correct.
So
just read this one document. Don't go reading everything else.
Just go read the document for yourself. Because, what it does say about cyber coverage is that in a catastrophic event, a catastrophic attack, we need to be prepared to not just dump it on the insurance industry because it's catastrophic. So understanding that, but that's the only place it talks about it, so we don't know. But it does talk very specifically, as we mentioned before, shift liability for insecure software products and services. So there's, you're rewarded, and this took us into a whole discussion about agile development. And we even had to look it up, and I'm like, that's where it all started, right there.
Yeah.
In a what was it, late 90s? Or was it 99, 2000, 2001?
It was the now famous Snowbird meeting in Utah in early 2001.
Yeah, and it was solving a major problem that we had in software development. And it did. It solved that major problem. But as we know, what happens, David, when you solve one problem?
You create others. Yeah. Or as I like to say it, let's solve today's problem and we'll worry about tomorrow's problem tomorrow.
And I think that's exactly where they were back then. So, but it did solve that problem, but it also opened the door for less secure code.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely solved a problem. When you go back and look at the history of Agile and you're like, wait a minute, it took how long to get this stuff to market? No wonder. It's crazy.
I remember I was a developer in the late 80s and, saw all that. So it did solve a lot of those problems, but it removed some quality control things. So what they're trying to do is put some of that back in with things like Secure Software Development Framework that NIST has released, and SBOM, which is the Software Bill of Materials. So you have to give a list of what software you use. And, Log4j really brought that to the forefront because it was buried in everything. So anyway, then we get 4.
Yep.
Invest in a resilient future.
Okay. All I want to know is how can I get some of that?
It's reinvigorate federal research and development for cybersecurity. Well, if we need research and development anywhere, that's one of the places, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not like, oh, somebody needs to go make it better, but here, we're going to fund this so that we do make it better and evaluate where the holes are before they're used. I think that's a big piece of it. It's like the bug bounties are great, but nobody's, a lot of the bug bounty folks don't get paid until they find a bug that the vendors deem worthy of payment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Prepare for our post-quantum future.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't even, we just, it's
we didn't even talk about, we didn't even talk about that a whole lot just because we don't want to lose a bunch of folks.
I don't even know if we could make it through the conversation without going, we're done.
Yeah, I don't know either.
No, I mean, it's like the things that we consider encrypted today, a quantum processor could treat it like a child's toy.
Maybe that's what they're going to do with the mushrooms.
And hey, but we're kind of, there's some other objectives and they're great if we could build digital identities. And a lot of these are the ways to shift it and make it, what we want is to make the end user not have so much responsibility on mitigating, not be completely out of the loop. They should participate, but why do we make it so easy that they can simply do a click and things fall? Mm-hmm. So another thing is develop a national strategy to strengthen our cyber workforce. And there's some really cool things there. I encourage a lot of folks, and when you say work in cybersecurity, what do people usually think? Like, the nerds on TV, they're like, oh my God, there's a firewall, there's a this, and they're hopping around and they're amazing, but I'm still going to do in 5 more clicks and 3 more yells. There, I've broken in. No.
I've seen it. I've seen them do it.
There's so much more to working in cybersecurity than that. And, they're finding that art majors and marketing majors have really great opportunity in cybersecurity. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying. And then in 5, forge international partnerships, which is, exactly what we have to do, because, if we don't get people working with us and we know it's coming from other countries, not like we don't have our own, but even under Hive, one of the data centers was in the U.S., but where was it? The other one was somewhere in Europe, right? Mm-hmm. Secure the global supply chain and all these kind of things. So a lot of big things that are important and not anything that we haven't really talked about before, honestly, when I read it.
No, it's a lot of this. So it's a lot of the same stuff, but that just goes to show that everything that we've been trying to do is still worthy of doing. We just might need to take a different approach in certain areas.
That's a great way to put it. I love that. That's cool. Is that the objective is still the same. Mm-hmm. It's how we get there. If what you're doing is not working, you need to try something else.
Yeah, It's kind of like, wait a minute, timeout's not working. Next time I'm going to tear your tail up.
His children are grown. Jeez. It's I mean, I heard that. As a kid.
Exactly. I know.
I didn't get that many.
I'm tired of talking. That's what my parents would always say. I'm tired of talking. That means what we were doing wasn't working. We could shift our strategy.
My mom, she had this thing where she'd just say, I mean, nothing ever happened when you did this, but it's like, with a kid, how you can just scare them into stopping because they don't know what you're saying. And she would lean over really sternly and go, do you want to go to the bathroom? And we'd be like, no, don't make me go to the bathroom. Like, nothing ever happened in the bathroom. Act like we were going to be hung from the rafters, But it was just something that worked one time, and she just stuck with it, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, they do have the section on implementing, and I love the very first thing that they say we need to do. What is it, David?
Do an assessment.
Oh, yeah. Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Well, let's just skip that part and then go to implementing our what everybody else does.
Yeah. In implementing it, it'll be a data-driven approach. Measure investments made, our progress toward implementation, and ultimate outcomes and effectiveness of these outcomes. What a great idea. Mm-hmm. Data. Let's make decisions based on actual data. So, I encourage anyone that is interested, or if at some point someone is going to read some of the articles and not the document, read the document so you're prepared and say, just go read the document. I mean, if it happened to us, it'll happen to you.
Oh, yeah, because I read a few of the news outlets, and I don't know which ones, so, I can't blame anybody. Read a few of the news stories, then I read the fact sheet, then I went and started on the other. By that time, I was so confused.
And then I started talking.
Yeah, I'm like, there's a lot of stuff that just it's not the same. There's some conflicting things happening here. I don't need any more conflict in my life.
Yeah. It's like, and it's not that necessarily is totally wrong. The statement is not absolutely wrong, but it really shouldn't be worded that way because of the different interpretations you can get. Mm-hmm. Because the word away meant to you immediately when I actually saw the sentence you were reading, just like when you actually saw the sentence I was reading, we both like, wow, now I get it. So, yeah. Definitely.
Words matter.
Even when it's us.
All right, folks, that is our show for today. Thanks for listening. Be sure to leave us a review. Please leave us a review, a 5-star review, or just don't leave one at all. Anyway, thanks again. And for those of you that will be at the conference next week, even though this will be out the week of the conference, something like that. Either way,
the day after it ends, after it. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, as we're recording this, we'll see you next week.
Yeehaw!
As you're listening to this, we've already seen you. That'll confuse you. All right. Thanks again, folks, and we'll see you next time. Remember, HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.